Hi everyone, welcome to Code Kamikaze YouTube channel and welcome to this DevSecOps playlist. So in this series, we have discussed about different tools and we have discussed about different usage, what tool could be used for what best practices to bring or stay away from vulnerabilities and security flaws. And today also the same way we are going to discuss about two emerging concepts. Those are code coverage and code analysis. And these two methods are majorly used in a CI/CD pipelines to stay away from the, you know, unwanted best practices that we have used while writing the developer view of source code. And if you let's see, what is meant by code coverage and what is meant by code analysis. So let's discuss about dictionary definition what regularly used available internet. So the code coverage is a refers to the measure of how much your code is executed by your test, which means and regularly developers do write their source code as per the business logic, which was got the input from the financial team or business team, whatever it may be. They have written the source code and they need to test whether their source code is working fine or not. That's why we have different testing mechanisms. So today we are going to see the one of the major testing mechanism, which is unit test, which means you are going to test a specific amount of code, whether it is giving an expected result or not. Let me give a small example for your better understanding. Let's example, a developer has written a source code to addition of two numbers, and he had written the code and he want to see how it is performing when you call the particular logic or particular code or particular amount of line of code. So for that reason, so what developer had done, he had imported that method into the separate file or the same file, and he is going to add two numbers in the same source code itself, and you are going to expect it the output result. In our case, let's keep this way. He have written the source code to addition of two numbers. And for testing of the particular piece of code, what he had done, he had added 1 plus 1. So the expected result would be 2. So this is how a developer can add dynamic numbers or static numbers in his source code, and you can see how that particular amount of code behaving by testing the specific amount of piece of code. So it's a really mandatory to test your source code before sending your source code into production. That is why we brought a code coverage is very crucial into DevSecOps principle. So that's about the code coverage. And when come to code analysis, so this is kind of another methodology, and this is the major and more important thing that you have to be keeping in mind while you're writing the source code. Since we are going to automate these all things in CI/CD pipeline, but while developer writing the source code, he has to follow the best practices and best standards, irrespective of language. Whether you are using Python, whether you are using Java, whether you are using .NET, or Ruby, or C Sharp, or any other languages. So each language has its own amount of standards, and your responsibility to catch any duplicates of your code. So these all comes under SAST, which is Static Application Security Testing, and your responsibility to check whether your source code is following the best practices of industries, and you are responsible to stay away from the potential issues while you are examining a source code. That is why we need to do a code analysis on CI/CD pipeline level or a developer local machine. Then only developer can know what all best practices he or she not following, and how we can bring the best practices of writing the code into his laptop or his daily day-to-day activities. So to perform these two code coverage and code analysis under SAST tree, so we are going to bring two modules or two tools. So today we are going to check the source code of Python, and I brought a Flask framework, so I have developed a small application in Flask. So Flask is a framework, and Django is also one kind of framework for Python, and we have a pyramid and we have a bottle. We have different frameworks for Python. So you can take any one of the frameworks. So these two tools can be used to find the code coverage and code analysis. So now directly jump into the concept. First, we need to check. how much amount of code or how much amount of test your code is getting passed when you are return the test cases. We call it as unit test, and you need to see the report. That's our major agenda. So let's open this WSL, which is Windows Subscription Linux. So if you haven't installed the Windows Subscription Linux on your Windows, so you can just go into the Microsoft Store and you can download it. You can use it in your Windows machine. It's up to you. You can use the Visual Studio Code also. So my favorite is like, I want to install Linux on Windows, so I can use multiple flavors, like instead of sticking only on Windows. So let's see, like, how we can use a code coverage. How can we use a module of Python, and how can we, or a module of tool of Python. So how can we test the uh, test of the code, how it is performing well or not. So the first thing we are going to discuss is code coverage, and later we'll see the code analysis. So if you want to check the code coverage, so we have the tool or module. Its name is Pytest. So if you want to install that into your local machine, so you need to use pip. Pip is a package manager of Python. So pip install Pytest. So Pytest is a modular tool for testing your source code, or testing your unit test of your source code. So when you press the enter on this command, so in my case, this already installed in my local machine. So if you're using, or if you're using Pytest as the first time, so it will download into your local laptop. So we have installed successfully Pytest. Now we would like to take the advantage of Pytest, and we would like to scan our Flask application, and would like to find how much coverage it is following. Let me show you my Flask application. So what all source code I have written. So testing the how I'm testing the application. So for that, I'm going to coverage directly. So here I have placed all my source code. So if I do ls, let me remove this test.py. So we are not using it. So in our case, we have the two files. One is app.py and another one test app.py. So in app.py, I have written a business logic by implementing with a Flask framework, and test app.py. So here I'm testing my application, or testing my logic that I have written in my app.py. So let me show you what I have written in app.py. So just I've imported the Flask, framework. So I have called it a framework as a name. I have given only one method by specifying a route, which is hello, and printing the hello world. That's it. I never do anything. I haven't done anything supernatural, like integrating the different kinds of piece of code. It's just a small piece amount of code where you can write, Flask application. That's it. So that is the only one I'm printing, which is hello world. And I would like to test whether it is printing hello or not. That's why I have written all the unit test into my test app.py. So let me show you the test app.py. So if I see here, I'm importing the unit test. I'm importing the app, import app, because I have specified app.route. That's why I have imported it. And here I'm specifying class test app and unit test and test cases. And I'm calling this route method, which is hello over here, by getting it. And I'm checking whether it is printing hello or not by specifying status code as a 200. That's it. So that's the basic information about writing the test cases in Flask. There is there is no any complicated thing that I have specified here. Now our agenda to check whether my application is passing a good code coverage or not. So I would like to see how the unit tests are performing now by testing with the PyTest module. So for that, what I have to do, I have to run the command to test, or finding the code coverage. The command is PyTest. If I press enter, so it is going to call the first here, it is going to call the root directory, which is home shake coverage, and here it is going to check the test cases which are available on app.py, and it is going to give the report which is 100%. Now we have application which are written in Flask framework, and we have written the test by calling the hello route, and it is passing the 100% of code coverage. Now everything is fine. And so if you would like to check the code coverage of each file, how much code coverage is available on each file. So for that, what you can do, you can pass the command, which is pytest. I'm going to call the directory, which is coverage. So here I'm targeting the directory. In my case, the directory name is coverage. So I would like to see all the information of my files, how much coverage are available on each file. So coverage, which is coverage. We press enter, so it is showing. This is the root directory, and here it have scanned. It has referred two files, which is coverage app.py and coverage test app.py, and it's seeing this platform stamps, and it is going to Linux misuses. And here, if you see here, it is giving the Python coverage, which is it is giving the coverage report. So if you see here, app.py we have 86 percentage, and test.py we have 92, and it is giving average value which is 89. So that is a wonderful. Usually you can specify the threshold limit, like if your coverage is above 75, 85, it has to fail the test cases. That you can customize it with the same different modules by specifying the customizing with the PyTest. So this is how we can check the coverage of your application. So in our case, we have you specify the Python. So PyTest is only for Python. So and we have a universal coverage tools also, like coverage tools and analysis tools, such as we have the SonarQube, which is widely used in the market. So the reason why I brought the open source, because like it's easy to install and easy to check your coverage report. Um, uh, in the console itself, you don't need to do much super advanced level of configuration in your machine. So that's all about code coverage. So we have seen what all things we have specified into our microservice, which was used by Flask microservice, and we had seen the code of business logic. We had seen how we integrate the test cases, and we have seen how we can install the PyTest, and we have seen how to run it and how to check the report of our PyTest. So that's the all information of checking the code coverage in your source code. And in my case, I have used the Flask. In your case, you can use any type of framework. If you're not using a type of any type of framework, you can barely write the sample Python file with a different extension. You can write the unit test on it, and you can scan with PyTest. So PyTest module can be used for across all the syntax of Python. So it will give a report of each file, how much it is following it up. So that's all about code coverage, and let's see code analysis. So code analysis kind of method, like we are already discussed, right? So it is going to check as per the standards of no, as per the standards of your stacks. So Python standard, Python language do follow the PEP8, which means Python Enhancement Proposal. It's the organization. It is specifying the hey, while you're writing the Python syntax, you have to follow these many protocols or whatever it may be, or rules. So otherwise, you'll be jump into the trouble while you're pushing your application into the production. So we should have one guy, or we should have one organization. It has to specify every time the best practices. That's why we have the for Python we have the PEP8. So PEP8 is kind of standards where you can refer it, and where you can write your own source code as per the best standards into the as per the organization standards. So for that we have the amazing tool to check the code analysis of your microservice or the code that you have written. So the module or the tool name itself is called as a Flake8. So Flake8 is a tool where you can use it to check your code analysis, how much amount of code your code is following the best standards or best practices of pip8. So to install the Flake8, so we just need to pass the pip install. Flake8 is a command. So in my case, I have already installed. So if you are using the Flake8 as the first time, it's getting installed. So let's see what all applications we have. So I'm going to scan one application, which is where is this Pygoat? Yeah, Pygoat is a application which was written in Django, and it is vulnerable application, and it has not been followed the best practices standard. So there we can see what are best practices the Flake 8 is going to give on console. So let me go into the cd pygoat. if I do ls, so we have the pygoat over here. Let me clear up. And if I do cd pygoat, if I see here, so it was developed in Django. So you can see a manage.py. Awesome. So now we'd like to use the Flake 8 to check the standards of my source code, how much standard it is following, and how much best practices the developer has written the code. For that, what you have to do, so you just have to specify Flake 8. That's it. So once you enter the command, so what it will do, it will go and scan all your source code. If you see here, it has scanned bunch of source code over here, and it is specifying each line by line. Wow. If you see here, we just enter this, and it's saying, hey, pygo.py, it has imported unused, and pygo.py, it has the line too long, which is between 106 and greater than 17. So if you want to see, like, you can copy this, you can directly come into the browser, and if you paste over here, oh, let me remove this. Yeah, if I see here, F401 is the ID for this, PEP 8 standards. So we have the discussion over here. Suppose the word like and snippet Python, and you have a different discussion over here. Everybody are giving the best practices to as per the PEP 8 standards. And if I directly look into this ID, PEP 8. So if you see here, we have the PEP 8 rules, and this is the rule we have to follow to overcome this particular issue. So import module imported but unused. So they're saying a module has been imported but not used anywhere in the file, which means they are saying that, hey, you have imported the module in your source code, but it has not been used. So this module should either be used or the imported should be removed, which means like if you are not been unused, it should be removed. Otherwise, it could be vulnerable while you're running into your non-product production. So anti-pattern, so we can check about it, like, if you have imported it from collections import namespace, so you have to remove it. So this is how we can integrate the rest of your code. So this is the rule that it is specifying. And let's go to the another rule, which is E501. This is the code which was implemented with Flake 8 itself. It is not a new one. So E501. If I open this link, mm, where is this? Yeah, here it is. E501. Line too long. So they're saying that line length are recommended to be no greater than 17 characters. The reason for that is coming for Pepe itself. It's fairly common for developers, especially those closed sources projects, uh, change maximum line length 100 or 120 characters, which means they're saying that, hey, your line is too long, so you should follow the best practices. It should be um, you know uh, no greater than 79, but it's greater than 79, so you should not keep your source code exceeded 79 lines of code. So that's all about 501, and we have the bunch of things, like if you see here, F403, which is a utility import used unable to detect the undefined names. Wow, this is security flaw, guys. Go here. From model import used unable to detect an undefined name. From model import is discovered because the program often won't know where imported object is defined, and the import module class or function should be explicitly defined, which means like they are specifying that, hey, if you imported, you explicitly specify it, whether you are using class or directory or generators or whatever functions you are using. So you have to specify the explicitly while you are integrating it. So they're saying that, hey, the best practices, like you need to follow these best practices, like from users, models, and import users. So you shouldn't import all the things. You should import the specific one only. So here they're saying that from models and import, they imported everything. That's not a best practices. While you are writing the source code, if you're importing something, you should be more picky instead of importing everything. Because if your application goes compromised, so you're going to expose all your source code, and that's not a best practices, right, into the real world. So this is how, guys, you can follow this flake 8 rules, and by specifying into pip 8, which is a Python enhancement proposal rules, and you can write the best and best of your source code in real time. So this is how, we have the bunch of issues because Pygoat is a vulnerable applications. So we have the bunch of like 203, 301, 501. We have seen 700. Do not use the bare expect. So they might have used the bare expect directly in the source code, and that's what the violation it is as for the pip 8. And we have seen 501231 missing white space after the comma. So there is some missing of white space. So you should not do that. So let's see this one, E231. So anti-pattern. So if you see here, guys, there's space of my tuple, and if you see this, like they have not been used, white space in between those characters 1 and 2 and 3. This is how written very continuously. So the best practice is, right, you should use the white space between 1 and 2 and 3. So this is how we can specify the code coverage into your source code. So that's all, guys. You can jump into your source code. You can look into the what all best practices your source code is following, and you can integrate this into your CI/CD pipeline. You can check how much your source code is following the code coverage, how it is best practices it is following, and you can specify or you can talk to your developers. You can let them know, hey, this is the best practices. You should implement your source code, and since it is not being used as a best practices, so your responsibility to write industry best standards of your source code. So that's the best practices where you can integrate this both tools and modules into your DevSecOps pipeline. In coming section, we will see how we can integrate it, and we will see how we can make our source code by following the best practices, stay away from security flaws, and get more less vulnerabilities into our runtime. So that's all for today, and we'll meet in next section. Stay tuned for this channel, subscribe this channel, and share to your friends who are really need to learn security and security best practices from the scratch by only using the open source. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.